Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's your boy Wolf Nara back to bring you another JJK discussion review type video. You feel me? I don't often do these, but hey, you know what I'm saying? We gonna try something a little bit different right now. You feel me? We're gonna try to produce. You know what I'm saying? A little review. If this does well, then you know what I'm saying. I'll do something else. You feel me? I'll do more in the future. So make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what was your favorite part of the chapter. So now I say 10 out of 10 chapter. First things first, we get to hear a lot about the previous reincarnated sorcerers like old girl with the eyes. What is her name? Because we know that she's kind of like the maid to Sukuna themselves, Urame, something like that. But she's pretty much their Gege pretty much shows us that everyone is in on the same plan, or in regards to knowing what Sukuna wants to do. Even if they're not on the same plan, they at least know the end goal of Sukuna, you feel me? So these characters may be giving us dialogue in later chapters, which is actually fire. Now, what Yorozu wants is she wants to marry Sukuna. Whether the vessel doesn't really matter, but she wants to marry Sukuna itself or himself, you feel me? And then have a wedding ceremony where they destroy 3 villages. And so now in the reaction I stated 3 villages was 3 cities, and hey, that's the equivalent at the very least. So imagine them going on a rampage in the United States, for example, because hey, that's where I live at. Them going on a rampage throughout the United States, and then city by city, state by state, they're just destroying shit. That's crazy, bro. And you can already see that with malevolent shrine, Sukuna would decimate a city. You feel me? Now with Yorozu on the other hand, I want to see if Yorozu has a similar domain, a similar divine domain. But we pay no air. You feel me? I want to see if she actually has something like that, because that'll actually be fire. Okay. Now the choreography always is amazing. One thing I do enjoy particularly is how Gege chose to have Yorozu initiate the fight, and thus has Yorozu's ability pretty much leading you to where to read. And so for the panel where she tries to hit Sukuna, he dodges, but you see her surfing on like this black mass, and it leads into the very next panel. You feel me? While they are having their skirmish, or you know what I'm saying, interacting between hands and feet. You feel me? Pulling out the mega. Feel me? Gege choose to lead that with Yorozu, and then to make it even more genius, instead of having Yorozu be the centerpiece, it shows a lot more emotion and fluidity having Sukuna be that centerpiece as well, which is a dope artistic take that Gege chose to do. Now with the next sequence, Sukuna kicks them back, right? It breaks the entire skirmish away, and with the expression he's making, you can also see that he's just kind of playing around. You feel me? He didn't really have to interact that way. They could have had a higher level interaction than what they did. You feel me? But this was just kind of like a test run. And so one thing that Angel said, not my apologies, Yorozu says that the only reason Angel wasn't able to notice them is because the love that was created through the bond that was created through love and hatred. And so I kind of want to touch on that. Is Yorozu, like, was the death of Yorozu was one of the things or one of the steps that prepared Sukuna into becoming a full-bodied cursed spirit? Because if that is the case, it doesn't make enough sense why someone that he loved at one point in time or had affection for at one point in time would actually be able to pull out this amount of rage and may actually be able to produce a curse to that degree, which would curse Sukuna to being able to propel himself to that state, or being able to get closer to that state. Because we see with Tengen, when Ghetto, well, my apologies, Ghetto's dead. Fuck. I'm sending my boy a pack. When Kenjaku was actually able to see Tengen's real body, he showed that Tengen looked or referenced Sukuna, kind of symbolizing or signaling that Tengen merge or the star plasma vessel information kind of came about after Sukuna whole thing with propelling himself to being the exact cursed spirit. And so I'm just wondering if yorozu death or sealing took key into that, because we know Kenjaku actually had to make deals around the time, and we see when he interacts with Kashimo in the past, he already had the scar around the Kamo guy's head, you feel me? And so he's been probably switching bodies since around the Sukuna era, and so hey, that's fire. Now your boy say, you think this is just set up Sukuna's design between killing her with his own technique, because the binding vow they just made of Sukuna has having to beat her or else marriage being her with Megumi's technique and sinking him deeper than they kind of conflicts with the binding vow, like playing dirty, since it's all interpretation. So right now, what I see based off that is more of that binding vow really doesn't matter anymore at this current point in time. Sukuna has completely traded vessels, and with him trading vessels, a binding vow is between pretty much two Jujutsu sorcerers. And so what makes Jujutsu sorcerers capable of utilizing cursed energy is being able to manipulate their emotions. Being, you know what I'm saying, one thing that was really key in the first half of Jujutsu Kaisen up until the Shibuya is how the soul plays into a person itself. And so if the soul is really that important, and we know the brain is the brain is what produces reverse cursed energy, you feel me? Then the soul itself is key to any sorcerer as well, or any human in that fact. And so with the binding vow, that just pretty much is two links between the souls. So when he jumps bodies, it kind of severs that binding vow that's necessary. So that's why when he cuts Megumi's finger off and makes him eat the vessel, it was a gamble in of itself. So now when he transfers over to Megumi, it makes the vow that Yuji and Sukuna had when their soul was somewhat linked to the same vessel null and void. So no, the binding vow doesn't really play into effect. It's more literally just making Megumi feel some type of way. And Sukuna made a vow made a vow with Rozu through about the marriage. If she beats him, he gets married. That's not necessarily a vow. They were just talking. He literally just said, because whenever a binding vow is initiated, Gege makes sure to display that it's a binding vow. So this is not a binding vow. This is just two interaction between previous humans or cursed spirits, or however you want to view these two characters. Whether it's at their origin point or at the end of their life, however you want to view them, as whether they're human or whether they're cursed spirits, but these two incarnations. And so the leaks are confusing right now. The leaks I read called it a binding vow. No, it's not. It's not a binding vow. I read nothing calling it a binding vow. It was just them just basically saying that if I win, you marry me, I could do what I want. And that's why another reason why it's not a binding vow is because Sukuna actually states that losing is the same thing as death to me. So it wouldn't be a binding vow. All she said was, it's a promise. So we have to wait for the official. So unless in the official they say it's a binding vow, I will gladly renege on what I'm saying. That's not an issue whatsoever. But it's a promise. You feel me? She out here reciting haikus. Now, the next part I want to get it into is the way that Sukuna is using divine dog. At first, when it's brought up, I thought it was actually going to form the two demonic dogs. But they are more like how when Megumi used the domain expansion against the special grade cursed spirits, how some of the frogs was formed, and some of them wasn't. They was kind of being formed. I believe that Sukuna keeps it this way because one, he doesn't have to necessarily fuse the curse spirits together if they die, because since they're not complete physical manifestations of that curse spirit, they're still within the shadow. They don't have the same drawbacks as if they was completely manifested. And so I like how he's now able to summon a multitude of divine dogs by keeping them linked to his shadow. You feel me? And that's fire. Next, if you notice in this panel, when Yorozu punches the divine dog shadows, you see Sukuna actually has a divine dog protecting him. And he forms them into one shadow. He doesn't form the full thing, but it's fire that he kind of formed that to protect him. And so I know he was using a ton of Megumi's techniques throughout the chapter, and Gege kind of talks about that later. But again, Gege shows the choreography, okay? Gege choreography is always hitting, you feel me? He uses the shadow to punch the ground, in which then him and Yorozu begin to dash away. Yorozu then uses her curse technique, in which it tries to trap Sukuna and make everything explode. Now, this kind of got me thinking. It reminds me of Noritoshi. No, is it Noritoshi? I think it's Noritoshi. That's the guy who can use the blood bending, or Choso, and how she's using the same amount of blood and she's manipulating it. You feel me? So when she used the splash, she then makes the blood rotate in a circle, so that way it doesn't lose any of it. Wow, I can't even speak. Hey man, this that after work brain, man. This that after work brain. And then she tried to kind of use a homing missile. Here's the hold on, wait a minute. And now this kind of brings in another thing where she says you're not using malevolent shrine. And Sukuna's whole thing is that he wants to dive Megumi's soul into darkness. And so one thing that's gonna leave Megumi soul unable to recover, quote unquote, by Sukuna's terms, is being able to kill the one person that he actually loves, that he cares about to the utmost, like number one on his list. You feel me? He cares about Yuji. He loves Yuji. That's his brother. You feel me? But it's just to be with him since before all of this started. So the bond there is just so deep, and that's why this wound will be great. And so it wouldn't be necessarily a wound where that he can actually justify. Just like how it'll be a wound similar to how when Yuji killed all those, Sukuna killed all those people in Shibuya, but because it was Yuji's body, he blamed himself for it. That was the kind of wound that he's trying to inflict on Megumi himself. And so with Yuji's situation and that what happened in Shibuya when he did the malevolent shrine, he just wanted to show Yuji the ramifications of his decisions, you feel me, or the results of him getting out. While Megumi, this is more to make sure that the person that he protected was destroyed by the thing that always enabled him to protect himself and those around him. And so that's fire, okay? And it's like saying they force you to kill somebody you love, you feel me? Even if you had the gun to your head and you did it, you feel me? You still did it. The trauma is still there. So it may be some PTSD. Now, one thing is this may backfire because he uses the term shadow a lot when it comes to Megumi's soul. While Megumi often resides in shadow, we see him diving into his curse technique a lot, into people's shadows popping up. So he's not a fool to the darkness. You see Megumi also trying to get Yuji to understand that certain things aren't his fault either. And so maybe he has the same method, but maybe it may be more irrational at this current point in time because it's his sister, you feel me? And so now let's get into Yorozu's technique. So she can pretty much make anything she wants as long as she has the knowledge and the amount of curse energy too. So if she wants to make a fortress, as long as she has the know how the inner workings of a castle is, even if she has just like pictures of it and explanations of it, she'll be able to manifest that exact castle. But she wouldn't be able to manifest any other castle she doesn't have any knowledge about. And that's fire. That's a perfect way to keep them balanced. So like, for example, when we fought, what was his name? Reggie. he was able to produce anything that could be used as a contract. So back in the day, maybe like in the period where Sukuna was prominent, or where Reggie comes from, they probably had less contracts then, while receipts are our contract, because it's just a barter system showing that you traded this for that, and this was that, and this was that. This was the end result. You feel me? Still a contract between you and the store, or you and the business entity. And so he was able to utilize that. So now I wonder if Yorozu has any knowledge of any current technology, because if she was residing in Sumiki, you feel me? One thing we noticed Yorozu was doing was looking out the window. It was almost as if she was kind of studying her surroundings. Is that going to come into place? Because Yorozu kind of potentially, with the domain, create like an entire world that she's able to control. Kind of how not Jogo. It's the octopus curse spirit. I can't think of it. Dogon. How Dogon was able to create all those sea creatures through his domain, and the beach scene that we seen Geto and the other curse spirits residing earlier on in Jujutsu Kaisen. Would they be able to, or would Yorozu be able to create the world? And so I often call Yorozu like grasshopper, or you feel what I mean? Like, hey man, you know what I'm saying, with the wings and shit, hey man. But I also called her Beelzebub. And at the end of the chapter, after they explained everything, she transformed into the Lord of Flies. The Lord of Flies. She transformed into Beelzebub, like a giant fly. That's fire. I love the representation. I love how Gege is diving into other lore, and also how it's coincided well with his. You feel me? Because all these things could cause fear. You feel me? Fear of the devil. You feel me? It could cause these things to rise. And we see that with Mahito, he was the amalgamation of the malice in men. You feel me? Jogo, I think Jogo was nature. You feel me? The earth. Dogon was the sea. And Hanami was plant-based, or pretty much the earth. So earth, volcano, with the forest, earth, and the sea. You feel me? So that's fire as well. So now the last part, the part that's actually hyped me up the most, was the Mahu Raga. We didn't see Mahu Raga actually be formed, but he actually summoned the wheel itself. So is the wheel going to be able to be utilized as if Sukuna himself is Mahu Raga? That's why the six eyes and the previous shadow user was able to clash to this degree, because the shadow user was able to nullify curse techniques when it's used, reverse curse techniques when it's used, curse energies when it's used, you feel me, and things of that nature. Applied on himself, or is it more of when they activated the domain expansion, it's just like an army of Maharagas, or amalgamation of all of the shadows into one? But that's all I really got for this chapter. This chapter was definitely hype. Like Sukuna says, man, it's time for his test drive. You feel me? And we had to test drive this chapter as well with a review. Let me know what you guys think of this format. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Hey, if you guys like it, we may be doing more Jujutsu Kaisen reviews again. Okay, I'm out.